Re-Up Alex.
Bimo.
I'm Esseks.
This is the Re-Up Podcast. Yeah, this is a very exciting episode for me personally because my travels over the past 10 years, came to fruition of me meeting people like Esseks, Charles I, Killsmith, Chimera. The list goes on. People who are in this amazing bass music community. And it's great to have someone here who is both a visual artist and somebody who makes soundscapes. Past that, great individual when it comes to his production and his knowledge behind production. And he even has an idea of what go-go is. So that's important to me.
Now I do.
Happy to have you on the show, man. Bimo, when is the last time that you drew a picture? Or drew anything? I can go.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I recently started drawing because I know it's actually super therapeutic. And it's really, if you really get into it, you can also think of like other ideas while you're drawing. Like I could be, trying to figure out what the next podcast guest is going to be while I'm drawing. And I can think of different kind of avenues and lanes of how I can do that just while I'm sketching and drawing out. It's been really nice. Or if you're trying to figure out an issue or a problem or just like decompress, it's been really, really good. But yeah, seriously though, when it's like, it could even be like a sketch,
So like, is there a difference between a doodle and a sketch?
A doodle and a sketch. I think if I'm sketching something, then it has an end point. I'm like sketching a person. I'm sketching something that I want to build. You know what I mean? Like, or, something like that. But with the doodle, it's kind of just free form. Yeah.
I doodle all the time.
Okay, that's good.
I got shamed. Like in middle school, you got to take your art class. We hit this one joint in 8th grade, like, all the people who graduate, they draw their own portraits, and it's in the hallway.
Of course.
It's part of the graduation ceremony. You've been seeing it since you was in like 6th grade, that you're going to get to 8th grade to be able to draw your portrait. I drew mine, and the teacher didn't put mine up because I am a terrible drawer.
Well, how did you figure out that you're a terrible drawer?
I couldn't perform at the level of my classmates.
I think it's great.
I think there are two like intellectual skill deficits I have: foreign language and illustration.
I think that it's pretty subjective. I don't think that you can tell somebody. I mean, when was the last time you went to a modern art museum? I recently went to the Fine Arts Museum in Richmond. I went to the modern art section. There were things there was a painting that was 3 colors on 3 different canvases that was just painted.
But was it bad?
I would say that's bad, yes.
No, that's not. That's modern art. You know what?
That's crazy.
Let's talk about it. What I guess. Let's talk about what I guess, because I feel like there is a line between like experiential form and bad. What I was doing was bad. Not like 8th grade, I didn't know any better. I was doing something intentional. There's actually a scene from like the French Dispatch that I think about all the time. There's this abstract
French
artist.
Dispatch?
Yeah, this movie by Wes Anderson, actually, one of his joints. Wes Anderson is with Bill Murray. Anyway, it's a magazine and a movie. But one of the joints is this abstract artist who just comes out of nowhere. Okay. And critic says to him, like, how do we know he just can't draw? And so the abstract artist draws like this beautiful bird on a Post-it note. And it becomes aware to you that, oh, he's doing this intentionally. He knows how to do a certain form, but he's escaping that form. Mm-hmm. That's not what 8th grade Brian Brown was doing. I wasn't escaping the form. I was just bad. This person at the Modern Art was escaping some type of form and doing that intentionally. Probably some like deconstructionist conversation about, is this art? But that's intentional.
Yeah, I think when you're progressing in art too, like escaping a form or like escaping what you're doing, like let's say with that doodle and going outside of it that's true art to me.
That's art.
But let's have Esseks.
Come on in, man.
Tell us what true art is.
Because I want to know, when you were experimenting with new forms, how often do you bump into the line of, oh, this is new, and oh, this is actually kind of ass?
I think you just know, like, it's kind of just like if you look at it and you're like, this is cool, it's cool. Like that's kind of just that's also just part of developing as an artist. You just kind of like learn to trust, or you kind of like develop a palette or an idea of what you think is good, and then you can kind of judge it from there. But that's really like the definition is of like, at least when you think something is good, it's like you'll know. That's just kind of what it is.
So are there qualifications to bad? If you can feel good, do you have to study bad so you don't have to go into, it doesn't seep through per se?
I think, bad is subjective, but I think there's a skill to like making something that looks bad feel good. Same with music. Like there's, like you were saying about that guy who's like an abstract artist and he proved that he could like draw a beautiful bird. Like when you know the rules, or you kind of know how to work within the rules, or not necessarily rules, but when you know what you're doing, then you can break rules intentionally.
Yeah.
And that's where I'd say the distinction between like good and bad is the intention.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. For me, when I'm doodling, the way that I drawing, but the way that I know that I'm personally doing bad is when I start to notice like the pen weight and the drag on everything, and the lines start to get like a little less fluid.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it too much.
Yeah.
And it's not bad when it's done, but when I look at it closely, I'm like, oh man, this isn't as smooth as I kind of wanted in the first place. But that's just me. Like, and that could be a lot of things. That could be like I'm not using the right pen on paper, so there's resistance, or there's not the right medium. But
so you haven't mastered your tools.
I haven't. I'm new. I'm
so
new
therefore,
here.
I could call you bad.
I'm getting a lot of likes on the Instagram story, so I don't know.
Here you go.
Somebody likes it.
Oh God. Okay.
I think that's actually the definition of good is how many likes on Instagram you get.
Okay, for sure.
I think that's a good
We all
indicator.
agree there.
Right. Yeah.
Oh God, I hate this life.
But I did have one question for you, Esseks. So, did you start with drawing and creating art, or music? First?
Yeah, definitely drawing, because that's just like every kid draws, But
Not emo.
no, I definitely started like just doodling as a kid.
Yeah.
And then kind of got into music. Like, I think everyone at some point kind of grows out of it. At least I did. I grew out of it for a while. Got into like
drawing?
Yeah, I got like
Interesting.
Got into sports and like skating and like just regular like preteen kid stuff. And then eventually I was kind of just like, it was like time to like start thinking about what I wanted to do. And my grandma was like, "You're an artist." Like, 'cause she always like wanted me to be an artist when I was a kid. She's like, "You should just go to art school." And I was like, I didn't even think that was like a possibility. And then I just got very into like, I was like, I'm going to go to art school. Like, that sounds way better than any other, like, that actually sounds fun. So I got very like into it throughout high school. Didn't get into AP art, but I still like got into art school like with my own portfolio on my own time.
Nice.
And and then I went to art school. I was like in bands and stuff in high school, but when I went to art school, there was like all this work to do, and then music was kind of my way of like procrastinating doing all the artwork. So that was like the fun thing. And then I got into music in college. I was like very just doing music the whole time. Got like some festival gigs and stuff. And by the time I was out of art school, it was like very apparent that getting a degree or like a real job in illustration was just like as much of a pipe dream as music.
Really?
So I was just like, I already have like a start in music, so why don't I just like take the path of least resistance?
Yeah.
And then when I started doing music full time, that's when like I started getting like way more interested in doing art again, because it was the thing I wasn't supposed to be doing.
Right.
So it was just like the fun thing that I like was choosing to do.
Procrastinating art.
Yeah.
Procrastinating art.
Yeah. Everything I excel at is like done through procrastination.
Okay, cool.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. You got to get into that flow state, that mind
Right.
state. Which
The state of play.
Yeah, exactly. No.
So
100%.
for the artistic world, I know I'm a trained musician and I came up through the saxophone, so everything is kind of filtered musically through there. But like, what's your like instrument per se in artistry?
I started out on guitar, so like I definitely have like a very like melody.
Gotcha.
I definitely think more in melody. But then like the more I've been making bass music and stuff like that, like it's tough to make melody work in bass music a lot of times. Like
I'm about to say, I feel like the exact opposite.
I mean, if you're making like a banger, like something for the dance floor, sometimes like, yeah, melody is kind of like makes your brain work. Whereas like rhythm and drums and stuff makes your body work. So like for dance music, like if you get too melodic with it, it can kind of like get too, I don't even know, it gets too like introspective and stuff, and it kind of gets people like in their heads as opposed to in their bodies, you know?
Really?
I try and push it melodic as far as possible, but that's just an observation that I've noticed over the years is like the more melodic you get with it, kind of.
There's like a line, you're still trying to find like the perfect sweet spot.
You're always trying to kind of like find that sweet spot where like I think melodically, so I always like prefer a song to have a melody, but like if I'm making something for the dance floor, a lot of times I have to like be conscious of not going too deep down that lane.
Definitely.
He's the first person to admit it.
Yeah.
He's the first electronic artist we've had to admit that trying to reduce melody.
Trying to reduce melody.
That has been which is our third season now.
Damn,
that is something I've been trying to put words to this whole time.
That is a good
Why
point.
is it that electronic music is trying to reduce melody, but you make a great point to get you out of here and put you back into these?
I mean, I also think it just also has to do with like, it's just drum focused music.
Yeah.
So like when you draw the focus too far away from like the bass and the drums, it just gets people in their head, and it's like I love melodies, so like I prefer a song that has a melody, but it's a lot of times it's not even that there isn't a melody, but you want to strip it down.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially with bass music, like certain bass notes, like the way bass music works is like the sub bass only has like one scale of range really, and like the top half of those is more like mid range almost. Like if that's like the root note of the song, it's gonna like be rattling your head as opposed to your chest.
Right.
So like you don't have a lot of movement available in the sub bass range, so you can't really be like jumping around your bass notes all the time. You can, there's no rules, but as far as like really like impactful bass music like standards, usually you kind of want to keep it within like between like, you know, a D at lowest and like maybe like an F at highest for it to be really like hard.
Talk that shit, baby.
Yeah.
You're talking about 7-8 notes right now.
Wouldn't you say that bass music is special because you can create melodies from, and dubstep too, like from those bass frequencies? And I feel like sometimes, especially within like, you know, stuff that's more like music that's like shelling, like once it actually makes a melody, everyone goes crazy for a second. That's kind of like the structure of a lot of songs, you know, like it's interesting.
I think if you notice though, a lot of times when it's like the heavy part where like everyone's going crazy and the melody comes in, it's not usually the bass note that's doing that melody. Usually it's the bass is just holding a flat note and then the melody. A lot of times, like, especially in bass music, like, there'll be something where you'll think that there's, like, this crazy bass, like, all this, like, movement going on, but that's just, like, the mid-range, and then underneath that is just, like, a flat sub-note just going, like, holding it.
Interesting.
Because you're not hearing it, you're just feeling it. But all the mid-range stuff is kind of, like, giving the impression that that's bass sounds, but, like, real sub-bass is not heard, it's felt, you know?
Okay.
Real
You're kind of convincing me.
Yeah.
You're kind of convincing me. Okay. Also, so while we got you here, you seem to be at least nerdy about your notations. Can you tell me the difference musically between these subgenres in electronic music? Like what differentiates bass music from, I don't know, like dubstep? What is the...
Well, I mean, that's not it. I don't think that. I would say what differentiates like
thing?
house music
Thank
from
you, Alex.
bass music. I think that would,
I mean, electronic music is mostly like like the defining characteristics are usually like rhythm. So it's like house music is usually defined by just like 4 on the floor kicks. And like bass music is more of like a blanket term for like dubstep, drum and bass, like garage.
Yeah,
all that stuff. Like, I think like like dubstep has like a very like rigid, not very, but like most of them, it's like a tempo and rhythm type thing.
Okay.
Like dubstep's at 140 BPM.
Yep.
Usually has like a certain rhythmic, like everything fits within like a certain rhythm.
Gotcha.
Whereas like bass music could be like a million different things. It could be like trap and anything really that has like a half. I mean, not even halftime because like drum and bass isn't really halftime, but anything that has like the snare on the 3 pretty much can count as bass music.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
All
like
right.
that's a loose blanket, but like
Yeah.
I would
No,
say that. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more hip hop derived in a way too.
For sure, yeah.
Because like a lot of bass music, when I'm listening to it, I'm always like, man, someone can 100% rap over this. Like it, and then sometimes when I listen to newer rap and like really with really good production that isn't actually like too commercial. Like for example, if you're looking at the beats of like someone like JPEG Mafia or like Denzel Curry or people like that are rapping on, I'm like, this is, you know.
I feel like JPEG
yeah.
Mafia has like I don't even know if I wouldn't know if I consider that bass music, but
Yeah,
it's like
but
that's
it's
just like
like-
its own thing kind of.
Yeah, I could see like the influence within hip hop that could transfer over with like how they're kind of making it so experimental, and that's what kind of made me think, you know, a few years ago about how those kind of go hand in hand in a way.
Yeah. I feel like the word experimental is like it's usually like synonymous with like shit that is hard to listen to.
Yeah,
'Cause it's
that
just like,
too.
or like not very enjoyable.
So that's what I was saying. Is it like modern art bad, or is it just like, no, this is trash? We don't know
Yeah.
what we're doing.
I think that's like more of like that's like what people whose music sounds like shit call their music
Got you.
as like an ease the pain kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
But
I
also
tried really hard.
But then there is experimental music that's crazy too,
Right.
though. But that's like it's such a small sliver of that is I feel like really good stuff.
Okay. Are you so when I'm around the jazz cats,
Jazz
which is
cats.
very rare because they're strange people.
They're elusive. Yeah.
They're strange people, right?
Yeah.
They wear funny hats, and they're very strict, literal funny hats, and they're very strict about the bars or the gates of their music. Is that the same thing you find like in bass music? Like if somebody is at 150 BPM, they're like, oh, I don't know, brother. You kind of stepping into some experimental shit. Does it have to be these strict, rigid parts of 4 on the floor makes house, snare on 3 makes bass music? If someone experiments within that, is it still within the genre? Are you guys still like assholes about the definition of your genre of music?
I think well, a lot of it has to do with like DJ culture and like trading tracks and stuff. So like if you're part of the dubstep scene and you got like a dub at 150, then no one's gonna be like, get out of here, bro. This isn't dubstep. But like they're also probably not gonna play it in their set because then they have to like jump 10 BPM during
Yeah.
their set to play it and stuff. So a lot of it fits into like DJ culture and like
Interesting.
the genres are more of like it's more of like a framework so you just know what you're getting kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like there's no rules. And honestly, I think most people like I said before, if you can break the rules in a creative way that's intentional, then most people like think that's awesome and appreciate it.
What rules will you bring in?
I mean, I couldn't just like say off the bat like it's always just like very like
Let's see.
it's more of like it's more like granular decisions while you're in the process of making something like
Okay.
small decisions like there's rules of like where your bass you're supposed to sit, where you're like there's like mixing rules, there's like there's all kinds of rules through every aspect of the process of like producing or creating anything. And I think like breaking the rules is more just like knowing what you're supposed to do or what like the standard thing that most people would recommend you do.
Yeah.
And then, if you purposely don't do that and it sounds good, then it sounds good. And that's kind of like that's where you kind of get progress from. It's like by breaking the rules and finding stuff that still sounds good,
Yeah.
I think a lot of the standard things of like any genre of music, were probably discovered on accident. And that was them breaking the rules kind of,
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the way that a lot of early electronic music was created was breaking the rules and doing weird things with record players and
Yeah.
cassettes and just things that nobody had even seen or thought of doing before, right?
Right, man.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, talking to 2 electronic music heads, like, what's the counter wave that you are seeing to your music? Are people coming back at you with folk? It's like, is there
Honestly?
a big country move that's trying to intercept you? Like, what are your thoughts there?
I mean, country is back big time, but I mean, I'm not in the country. It doesn't seem like most people in bass music are like, the people who are like, man, I'm over this. They really go to like country music, but
That would be a cute intersection.
I think electronic music is unique in a way where like the stuff that is culture now is kind of like it's like similar to like rock music where like some bands were culture, but then there's still like underground bands that are like doing
Right.
crazy avant-garde stuff, and like I wouldn't consider myself to be in like the mainstream culture by any means. And I think like most artists that I know and my friends would consider ourselves to still be in the counterculture, even though there's some figures in our scene, which like the scene is like, it's not like this thing. It's like more, it's more like loose. It's like, there's people in my scene who I've never met before, tons of people in my scene I've never met before, but just because we're under the electronic music / bass music blanket, it's like, but there's a lot of sections of the bass music world that I wouldn't consider myself anything like.
Interesting.
Even though, like, I'm sure to most people, they would think that we're basically the same thing. But
yeah.
To me, we're completely different, Just because I have lived in this world and made these distinctions more and more, learned what all the distinctions are.
Yeah. I mean, to build on your question, like, you're saying counterculture compared to bass music, like if somebody were to leave the bass music scene or electronic in general, where would they go?
Yeah, like or even more like antagonistically, like are there genres of music or demographics of people who are trying to replace your place in counterculture?
Within electronic music, like
just within music in general.
Oh, okay.
Just like these cool, there's supposed to be these cool mega kids now that are wearing like $3 million suits with MAGA hats. Is there crazy. Someone trying to replace electronic music with a different counterculture music?
I mean, I think country would be a decent example of that because like country is popping off right now. I would say like what I was gonna say is something that's super adjacent that I haven't been too far into, that's always been side by side with electronic music, I guess within like more so our time of like the 2010s would be jam bands.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Jam bands, like that's I learned about jam bands same time I learned about like dubstep and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Festivals used to be like half and half.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They still do that sometimes. And the funniest thing about that is when you go into the jazz heads, like the D. Harrisons and the Butcher Browns and people we've had on this podcast, they will play with the jam bands a lot.
Of course.
And they make like soul, jazz, this also popular. But yeah, they'll always tell me when, we're at a show or something, they'll be like, oh yeah, we've got a jam band opening up and then we're going to do a jazz, soul, like crazy set to headline. So it's very interesting how all of those three things, jazz, jam bands, and electronic music, like I can see
that is an interesting little sandwich right there.
Yeah.
I think about how the decline of Boys to Men was so sharp.
Yeah, it's true. The boy bands.
Because they got audience shifted from Boys to Men to Backstreet Boys. The same white girls, this is not hyperbolic, who were fawning at the Boys to Men show 2 years later were now at the Backstreet Boys show. And I'm wondering, will that happen to electronic music? Will all the white girls of your crowd start going to, I don't know,
I mean,
Taylor Swift concerts more?
I think they're all starting to go to McGee and Dijon, and that's been a big comeback, at least amongst my friends.
Who's McGee and Dijon?
They're like,
I don't live in New York, so
they're big. I mean, McGee played on SNL, so he's pretty big now. Okay. But like, they're like, it's like kind of like modern R&B kind of, but like McGee less so than Dijon. Richard? But McGee's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like 80s, similar to like. I don't even know. It's like very kind of 80s, but also like he like finger picks on a guitar. Yeah. Like
cool.
I can see that the 80s revival, kind of like Tommy Richmond is doing that. Yeah. That's funny. Damn. Speaking of people from the DMV area, earlier we were talking to Esseks about go-go music. And we asked you what you think go-go music is.
Yeah, and I confuse it with go-go dancers.
It's a valid thing.
That happens, man.
But the thing that you got me is, you were kind of doing a funky little dance with this guitar, and I thought that he had caught on to what it actually is. But yeah, I'll try to butcher this real quick. Go-go is a genre of music that derived from Washington, D.C., very based off of funk and soul and bands like Trouble Funk that were kind of doing different beat patterns that essentially kind of similar to like the Amen break, right? When they found the Amen break, they started making electronic music with the Amen break. once these go-go patterns within funk and soul became popular and people latched onto them, it created a subgenre, which is go-go.
So
And
it's like based off of a break, pretty much, like a specific break.
a couple different ones. But yeah, it's really popular in DC. This guy Chuck Brown really brought that forward. And yeah, it's a DC genre. It's really, really cool. And the progression of it now with the younger people is that they do like covers, but go-go covers. So we'll have super popular songs. There's thousands of people in a, packed out U Street, Washington, D.C., having a good time.
Damn, is U Street still around?
U Street is still around. They did not destroy it.
Oh, I thought
No, U Street Music Hall is not around.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Right,
he's hit.
Yeah.
No, he's been in DC.
You know what I'm saying?
I just know U Street. I just know U Street Music Hall.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that was a good time.
No,
you played there before?
Many years ago, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great time. Yeah, it's close.
yeah.
I
Did
thought
not
so.
survive.
That's interesting, though. I got to check out this go-go music.
No,
Some
it's-
research to do.
It's a whole thing. Man.
Yeah, I think you might like it, man. Especially if you're like someone who is melody driven, but also is connected to like drum and bass at the same time.
Yeah,
That's a vibe.
interesting.
It's a vibe, man. I've lived in a few different cities. I've gotten to know like different regional music, chopped and screwed, bounce music out of New Orleans. Go-go is kind of like probably the most original thing that I've heard from a city's particular sound.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you exclude New York, you know what I mean? New York.
Yeah.
New York is New York.
They're all over
Yeah.
the place. They're all over the place. So with different genres, ways that people make music, you create a lot of like soundscapes and, abstract sounds. What like keeps you inspired to do that?
Just like a sense of play. Like I think the most exciting stuff, both like sound design wise and just anything creatively, is like trying to surprise yourself, like happy accidents, giving yourself like things that will kind of take the intention out of your hands and like really like kind of try and like come up with something you wouldn't come up with yourself.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
like, just throwing random things in there and like sometimes I don't know, just giving it some character and some like not make everything sound so intentional. So I'll just mess around and like just try and have fun for hours and then kind of just like build a bank of a bunch of sounds that I think are cool.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a bass patch or just like a weird sound that I can like throw in a folder and just throw around and like switch out different
Yeah.
drums for them and stuff and just see what sounds good,
I could see that, especially like when I listen to electronic music, which, live, like for years, that's kind of how I experienced electronic music, and it wasn't really like too far into my rotation. But when I do get it into my rotation, I'm usually interested in how it makes me feel without lyrics.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing to latch on to other than what somebody did production wise. So I can imagine that like if you're having thoughts or feelings and you create something, like those can kind of transfer in a way for people in their minds, or they kind of take it to wherever they want. But
Yeah. I think for me, at least the way I work, like I rarely am like, oh, I have an idea, let me get this out. Like for me, it's like a process of just like messing around and like until some weird little like sound comes out, and then I'm like,
Yeah,
let me throw a
yeah.
drum beat over this and see what that sounds like. And it's just kind of like a process of, it's like a series of choices, just kind of like messing around, throwing like different stuff on there until it like feels
it's
feels
cool.
right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you sit to create.
Yeah.
Like you like, oh, I'm going to sit here, see what happens.
Yeah.
Play around, see what happens. It's not like you're taking a walk and it's like, oh, shit, I got to run home and get this.
Yeah, no, there's been moments of that, but it's never been like a musical idea. It'll be like an idea for like, art for a song or something,
Right.
or like something where it's like, or I'll like write it down. But like musical ideas, that's like, I kind of just wake up and make coffee and then clock in and just sit there for like a couple hours and just like kind of flow it out.
nice.
How did you discover this process about yourself? Was this like always a thing? Did you have to kind of unlearn some things? Because this sounds like your childhood self after you realized that maybe like formal school kind of took you away from your childhood self a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it was like,
But you did go to art school too, though.
yeah, I think coming to this process came from like trying to make all the ideas I had in my head and it never coming out the way I wanted it to, or sounding too like rigid, because like a lot of the stuff that makes like some a lot of stuff in your head when you're thinking of the song or whatever, the stuff that makes it sound good in your head is not like the specific arrangement of note. It's not like the melody like played like in a MIDI thing playing the way it is with like, you know, the drums the way they are. It's like so much of it is like this other stuff and like the play, like the, you know, the textures and all these other stuff. That's like, you can't really get that whole idea out in the time that you're sitting there to work on a song. So you kind of just have to like go with the flow and like have to let the song lead or like let the process lead you.
That's scary. That's petrifying, actually.
I mean, it's not if you view it as like an opportunity to like surprise yourself with something exciting, you know? That's really what it is.
You think people like to be surprised by themselves?
Yeah.
That's why they don't do drugs.
That's true too. Yeah, no, that is true.
Huh.
It's a way to surprise yourself in a safe, wholesome way.
Right. Wholesome.
Oh my god.
Right. Okay.
Do you know who Jeremy Fish is?
Bro, Jeremy Fish is one of my biggest inspirations art-wise, like visual art-wise.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn,
I came up
that's
on like
right.
Juxtaposed magazine and like High Fructose magazine.
Really?
And he was big in those. Like
Yeah.
him and Jeff Soto were like probably my two biggest influences.
Did Jeremy Fish do Adventure Time? Is he?
No, that was Pendleton Ward.
Pendleton
Ward and like a whole bunch of other artists that I'm
Okay.
also a big fan of. But Pendleton Ward like made, I think Adventure Time was like a 10-minute YouTube video. When I was in high school, I remember it being like a 10-minute YouTube video that my friend showed me, and I was like, "This is crazy." And then I saw like a trailer in like a movie I was seeing in like when Adventure Time came out. This is like years and years ago, but I was at a movie and I saw like they were making a whole show of it, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." Then I didn't have cable or anything because I was like in college dorm, so like
Of course.
I didn't watch like the whole series until like later, and then I watched the whole thing. I was like, "Yeah, this is crazy." But yeah, the Pendleton Ward is like. He's done a bunch of stuff, but he's really that's definitely like his opus.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
If you were like a kid now, do you think you would grow to be an illustrator, especially with like the boom of adult animation? I feel like I've kind of aged you in my head, but when you say you took a break from animation, I understood why, because there was about 7-year gap where it didn't feel like animation was progressing forward.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I came from the era of like, I mean, honestly, I'm gonna age myself here, but I'm from the era of like Doug, Rugrats.
Same.
So, yeah, you know,
Nickelodeon.
90s
not
kid,
Disney,
yeah. 90s kid. So I do remember, I've always like been a fan of animation. So like, I do remember when I got out of college, Adventure Time was sick. There was another show called like Chowder or something. I was like,
Oh,
this is
Chowder's
crazy.
good. Regular show's great.
Regular show's sick. But yeah, no, there's definitely a big boom of it now. Honestly, it's hard to say. I feel like when I was a kid, or at least when I was like starting to do art and animation, even music, like there wasn't like a ton of people like in my school doing that. It was kind of like a very small group of people. Whereas like I think now everyone has some kind of creative outlet or something. It's also much easier to get into. Like when I was younger,
much easier. You had to do
recording
shit by
music
hand.
was tough. Like I had like my friend had a laptop that had Pro Tools and he would like let me borrow it, and I just bought like a little audio box and I would just like have to like play my guitar into it and like had no effects or anything. Like it sounded terrible, but like just the level of entry was so much easier, so much harder.
goodness.
And even like drawing, like illustration, like now Procreate, all these like apps, it's so easy to
Procreate's
just make an
crazy.
animation. Whereas back in the day, you'd have to like draw on a bunch of things and like scan them, and like at least like if you don't have, you know, a Wacom tablet or any of that stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
No, it was
insane.
practically impossible. You might as well
Yeah.
just get the Post-it notebook out and have a good
Get a
time.
flip book.
Yeah. No, I remember I had to edit a video for a senior project, and I'd have to edit the video in my girlfriend's mom's ex-husband's garage. He's the only person in our city who had fucking Premiere.
Oh my god.
Only person in Tallahassee, Florida, in the
Damn.
black community who had Premiere.
No, I mean,
It's probably on disc too, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
And I'd be in that bitch all night trying to render 2 frames.
No, definitely. Or the one person who has the cracked version on their one laptop, and you have
This
to
is
use
before,
that way.
bro. I'm older than cracked versions. This is what I'm trying to tell you.
No. I feel you. But I wish we still had a CD that we could use for programs.
Adobe,
That would
at least
be
for Adobe, that'd be
Adobe,
nice.
yeah. Adobe's
Yeah.
crazy how you
Yeah.
have to have a subscription,
For real,
and
it's
it's like,
crazy.
yeah, it's
$50 a month for the suite.
I can't even get it to work.
I barely even
offline.
use it anymore.
Like, no, it's wild. Earlier you were kind of mentioning that you were drawing and going to art school, doing things like that, and then you kind of just like started playing a few festivals. Is that like actually how it happened? Is it just
no, like someone in my college dorms, this kid Jackson Whalen, he's a rapper now, but he was from
that
like
sounds familiar.
he like raps and stuff, but he's from like Massachusetts, Great Barrington, and they had this festival up there called the Big Up, and it was like, looking back on it, it was probably like the smallest festival, just like local festival. But to us, like he was like, "Yo, my friend, this dude Jules Jensen, who like he was in this band Higher Organics. He does like a bunch of stuff now. I think he does like he's like on the tech team for like Machine Gun Kelly or something. But he's gotten a bunch of work since then. But this band Higher Organics threw this festival up in Great Barrington, and my friend Ty, we were probably like 19 or something, when he was like, "Yo, I got us a set. Like, do you want to like help me make some songs? Like, I'll play. Like, you want to play guitar in my band?" And I was like, "Sure." And we like made a ton of songs together. And by the time it came to the festival, we were like, "Let's just call ourselves a band. Like, start making music." And then like we got a drummer, and we kind of just had this whole like live hip hop group thing going. And it was kind of like one of those things where it was his band, and I was kind of just like the guitarist slash.
Right.
But we would all like, we had like backing beats and stuff. So like everyone in the band would try and like get their beats to be used. And I definitely got like a lot of my beats turned down, and I kind of got like a chip on my shoulder about it and was like, "Man, I'm going to show you guys like doing some sick stuff." And then, eventually, as all bands do, we kind of just all grew apart, moved different places. And then like from there, I kind of just had like my solo career was not going a lot of places. But then, I like found a lot of connections through the music scene, and like that was kind of like my foot in the door was through that festival and that band.
That's what's up.
Wow.
What's up?
That's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, Serum too. What do you think that it is going to change the world of electronic production, like everybody's been saying? Because I don't make music per se or anything.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just said per se. I never say that. I don't make music. Hang around Essex for, a couple hours, you say per se. But yeah, basically, I don't produce any electronic music. I don't even spin. But everyone's been saying that Serum 2, which is obviously different than Serum 1, is going to make it much easier for people to make, like, I guess, random sounds or, yeah.
I don't think it's going to change the face of electronic music by any means. It's just a synthesizer. Like,
yeah.
There's a synth called Current by Minimal Audio that can do basically, at least on my first impression, I was like, oh, this is basically the same thing. But there is some crazy LFO stuff, a bunch of like, I will say on the train ride up here, I tried Serum 2 for like the whole train ride. And that was like my first real sit down with it. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of tools on there that like I said before, I like to like surprise myself and like have the tools kind of like have a mind of their own and like kind of like lose track of them and let them do crazy stuff. And there's a lot of stuff with like potential for that. Nice. A lot of potential for randomizing stuff.
Okay,
and, like,
yeah, that's
doing
what I've
crazy like out of pocket stuff that just surprises you. So like that is exciting. But as far as like making growly bass sounds, like there's a million. That's not going to change.
Yeah.
Because of this one.
BMO, you gotta come over to my house one day.
Let's just pretend. You want me to come to the house and do what?
You gotta come over to my house and watch someone make a electronic music song.
Okay.
You're gonna freak
Can
out.
you see the confusion on my hand?
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, let's just say nobody knew anything about creating electronic music.
I mean, when
How would you explain Serum to them? Let's just pretend. Yeah.
I couldn't explain that, but I could explain like me watching someone make electronic music in 2025, and usually it starts with a sample. Mm-hmm. That's usually what or a loop. A lot, or at least the people I'm around, and I just think it's interesting that the Serum thing kind of makes it. Maybe they won't have to go on Splice as much. I hope. I don't know.
At the end of the day, it's a synthesizer.
Yeah.
Like everything. Like I think the reason a lot of people go straight to Splice is because having just like one solid thing that already sounds good to like go off of is a good jumping off point. Mm-hmm. But like you can do that with presets on a synth. At the end of the day, it's just like Serum is just like it's a synthesizer. Like it's a million of them already exist, and like I do think Serum's really cool. Like I think the reason that it's so big right now for everyone else is because Serum's just the standard thing that everyone used. I don't think a lot of people use Current. So like they're like, whoa, Serum's got better.
Yeah.
And like if you'd been using Current the whole time, you'd be like, all right, there's a couple cool things in here. Like
Gotcha.
there's a couple cool things on Current that Serum doesn't have. But I will say, like, after watching this video with all the like ins and outs of Serum on the train right up here, I will say it is exciting. There's a lot of potential for sure.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool, man. Well, yeah, last question. You got anything that you want to accomplish in 2025? I know you've had a really, really fluid career, I would say, and a lot of people are very deep fans of your production style and your art and just the things that you've accomplished. But yeah, is there just anything that you're kind of trying to do this year?
I don't know, man. Like, just probably make the best music I can. Get better at my visual stuff. Like, try and get my visuals looking better than they already are. Honestly, no. I'm not a very goal-oriented person. I kind of just like work and hope for the best.
I don't even really mean like goals. Like, it can also be something that you're.
Wait, hold on, Alex. Time out. My man said he's not a goal-oriented person. Have you heard that before?
Wait, I'm not goal-oriented.
Hold on. I think you breezed by it because you heard it.
I breezed by it because I was like, let me rephrase
Wait,
goal.
What do you mean?
I'm not like. I guess the way I.
This is the second time you said that.
I'm not like I'm gonna do that one day. I'm just kind of like. I just kind of like try to work my hardest and like hope for the best.
No, that's good. I feel you. I mean, because especially if you know what the path is, like, you're gonna go on that path. You're gonna go down the path. You're gonna take a few. You might go into a little nook here and there, but you're still gonna be going on the path.
That's fascinating.
So I think, like, especially with like, I mean, this is an exaggeration, but I feel like most artists, at least in my scene, like, when they think of it, when you're like, oh, what's your biggest goal? It's always like, I'm gonna play this venue one day and stuff.
Yeah.
And like that's stuff like that is like out of my control. So like, I can't like pitch to Red Rocks to be like, yo, let me headline Red Rocks. So like, my goal is to get big enough to one day be able to play something like that. But like, as far as like, what do I have planned for this year? Like, I kind of just have a work schedule where it's like, just make songs. Like, I just have like 1 million songs just sitting on a hard drive, and then I kind of just like pick through all those, my favorite ones of the year, and like try and make it into something cohesive and stuff. Same with like artwork. I just kind of like draw all the time, make pieces that could potentially be something, and then when it's time to like make a flyer, make an album cover, I kind of just like find my favorite one or the one that I think is like undeniably good, So
I got you.
it's kind of like I'm never like. I mean, my goal is to continue what I'm doing, put another album out this year, play bigger shows, hopefully, like see where it takes me.
Thanks for listening, y'all. If you get a chance to subscribe, like, download, and follow, we really appreciate it. You can find us on Instagram at the ReUp, ODCAST. You can also find us on Patreon for exclusive content. New episodes every other Thursday. Thanks for your trust. Appreciate y'all.